My name is Thomas. I am 89 years old. When people hear my age, they often assume that I have everything figured out. They think long life brings certainty. What it actually brings is perspective. You stop pretending that life is neat. You stop believing that faith works like a formula. I want to speak today about the hardest years of my life. Not the years that look difficult from the outside, but the years that quietly hollowed me out on the inside. The years where nothing dramatic happened, yet everything felt heavy. For a long time, I believed that if God was truly present, then life would feel steady. I believed faith would smooth the rough edges. I believed prayer would protect me from the worst things. I did not say that out loud, but I carried it inside. Then life began to undo that belief. The hardest years did not arrive all at once. They came gradually. One disappointment layered onto another, one quiet loss following the next. It was not tragedy in the way people talk about tragedy. It was erosion. When I was younger, I expected God to intervene clearly. I expected doors to open or close. I expected peace to arrive quickly after prayer. I believed confusion meant I was doing something wrong, but confusion stayed. One of the first deep losses was my father. He was a steady man. He worked hard. He did not speak much, but his presence was solid. When he died, something in me broke that I did not know how to name. I realized that the people who had always been there would not always remain. I stayed busy after that. Work filled the silence. Responsibility gave me structure. I told myself that strength meant not slowing down. Years later, my marriage entered a long and quiet struggle. We loved each other, but we stopped understanding each other, not through anger, but through distance. We carried unspoken disappointments. Conversations became careful. We avoided certain topics to keep the peace. I prayed during those years, but my prayers were mostly requests. Change this, fix that, make it lighter, make it clearer. Nothing changed quickly. Then came the years where loss became familiar, friends buried, health weakened, plans interrupted. I watched people I respected face sickness with dignity. I watched others grow bitter. I watched myself become tired in ways sleep did not fix. Those were the years when I wondered where God was. I continued going to church. I continued reading scripture. I continued bowing my head. But faith felt thin. I did not feel angry at God. I felt unsure of how to reach him. There is a psalm that speaks about walking through the valley of the shadow of death. When I was younger, I imagined the valley as a short passage, something you move through quickly before arriving somewhere better. What I learned later is that some valleys are long, very long. God did not remove the valley during my hardest years. He did not explain it to me. He did not hurry me through it. What he did was remain. At the time, that did not feel comforting. It felt like absence, but presence is not always loud. Sometimes presence looks like endurance, like being held together when you expected to fall apart. During those years, I noticed small things. I noticed that I still woke up each morning. I noticed that Scripture still spoke quietly, even when it did not answer my questions. I noticed that certain verses stayed with me throughout the day, not as solutions, but as companions. There is a verse that says God is close to the brokenhearted. I used to read that as emotional comfort. I now understand it as steady nearness. God does not rush healing. He does not demand clarity. He stays while you learn how to live again. One afternoon during those years, I sat alone in my living room. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels heavy. I had done everything I knew how to do. I had prayed. I had tried to remain faithful. I had endured. That day I did not ask God for answers. I did not ask him to fix anything. I read a few lines of scripture, closed the book, and sat still. That was when something shifted in me. I realized that faith is not always about strength. Sometimes it is about staying. Staying present when leaving would be easier. Staying honest when pretending would hurt less. Staying open when closing yourself off feels safer. God was not absent during my hardest years. He was working quietly, shaping patience, teaching humility, forming endurance without bitterness. I began to see that my earlier faith had been built around outcomes. If I prayed, then things would improve. If I trusted God, then pain would lessen. Later, faith is built around presence, God with me rather than God fixing things for me. There is a passage that speaks about grace being sufficient. When I was younger, I thought that meant strength. I now understand it means enough. Enough to get through the day, enough to remain kind, enough to keep loving when it would be easier to withdraw. During my hardest years, God gave me enough restraint to avoid words I would regret, enough patience to listen rather than react, enough clarity to know when silence was wiser than explanation, enough peace to sleep even when uncertainty remained. Looking back now, I can say something honestly. Those years did not make sense while I lived them. They make sense now, only in pieces. But they softened me. They stripped away pride. They taught me compassion for others whose burdens are invisible. I notice suffering differently now. I do not rush past it. I do not try to explain it away. I understand that God often works beneath the surface in ways that do not impress, in ways that endure. If you are living through hard years now, I will not tell you they will pass quickly. I will not tell you everything happens for a reason you will understand. What I will tell you is this: God is not waiting for you on the other side of your pain. He is present within it. He is present in the quiet mornings, in the repetitive days, in the long nights, in the strength you did not know you had until you needed it. Faith later in life is not louder. It is steadier. I no longer expect God to explain himself to me. I trust his character more than his timing. I trust that presence matters more than answers. When I look back on my hardest years, I see God in places I did not recognize at the time, in patience, in endurance, in the ability to remain gentle when life was not. If I could speak to my younger self, I would say this: do not measure God's faithfulness by your comfort. Measure it by his nearness. And if you are listening to this and carrying weight of your own, know this: you are not behind. You are not failing. You are being shaped. God does his deepest work quietly. Before I finish, I want to leave you with a simple blessing. May the Lord steady your heart. May he meet you in the long days. May you find strength that does not depend on circumstances. May you discover that his presence is enough, even when answers are not. Thank you for sitting with me. If you wish, you may return again. There is still more I have learned, and I am grateful to share it while I can.